All right, so get this. We're diving into something pretty wild in the world of finance today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's called the Bitcoin Act of 2024.
Okay.
And this proposed bill, it suggests that the U.S. government should start stockpiling Bitcoin.
Wow.
And we're not talking about just like a little bit.
Yeah.
Imagine like the U.S. holding a strategic reserve of Bitcoin, much like they do with gold.
Like a strategic reserve.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's what we're going to be looking at today.
It's certainly a bold proposition.
Yeah.
The main thing we're looking at for this deep dive is the bill itself.
Oh,
And it really does kind of outline a plan that could totally change the financial landscape as we know it.
yeah. So, I mean, we'll get into all the little details of it, but
Yeah.
but first let's kind of set the stage. Like,
Yeah.
why would the U.S. even consider hoarding Bitcoin?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Is it a brilliant move or is this a reckless gamble?
Yeah.
I think to really understand like the motivations behind this, we have to think about how Bitcoin's role in the global economy has been evolving.
Okay.
It's gone from kind of this like fringe digital currency to like
Right.
a major asset class. And some people even say that it,
Yeah.
challenges the dominance of the US dollar.
Oh, okay. So is this like a preemptive strike to
Yeah.
like maintain America's financial power?
It could be.
Yeah.
In a world that's
Wow.
embracing these digital assets more and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's definitely one way to look at it.
Okay.
By doing this, by establishing this strategic Bitcoin reserve,
Right.
the U.S. could be signaling that they're willing to adapt to the changing financial world,
Right.
and they could even be trying to guide it in a certain direction.
Yeah. It's almost like saying we're not afraid of Bitcoin. We're going to embrace it,
Right.
but we're going to do it on our own terms.
Exactly.
All right. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Like, how would this reserve even be built?
Okay, so the bill has this thing called the Bitcoin Purchase Program. And the goal is to get 200,000 Bitcoins every year for 5 years.
Wow.
So that means they're shooting for a total of 1 million Bitcoins.
1 million.
Yeah. And at the price it is now, that's a huge investment.
Wow. That's a serious commitment.
It is.
And I imagine if they're acquiring that much Bitcoin, it could really
Yeah.
mess with the market.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the bill actually acknowledges that.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. It includes this provision
Okay.
that says they can change the purchase schedule depending on market conditions.
Oh, so they're not just like diving in head first.
No.
Okay.
They're trying to be strategic about it so they don't cause too much volatility.
Right, because they're such a big buyer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The government's a huge buyer, so they know they can affect the price.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're kind of trying to play it smart.
Exactly.
Okay, but once they have all this Bitcoin, what are they going to do with it?
Well, the bill says that they have to hold on to any Bitcoin they buy for at least 20 years.
Oh, wow. So they're in it for the long haul.
It seems like it, right?
Yeah.
This long-term approach is actually kind of similar to what they've done with reserves in the past.
Okay.
It seems like they think Bitcoin is more than just some speculative asset.
Interesting. So it's a long-term vision.
Yeah.
Like they're maybe even getting ready for a future where Bitcoin is a bigger player in global finance.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, what kind of future are they envisioning?
Right.
How does this reserve fit into that?
Yeah.
It's something to think about as we dig deeper into the details of this bill.
Okay, so it's not just about buying new Bitcoin, though, right?
Right.
The bill also says they have to consolidate all the Bitcoin the government already has into this central reserve.
That's right. So that includes any Bitcoin they seize during criminal investigation.
Oh, so instead of auctioning it off?
Yep. It all goes into the reserve.
Okay, so they're really building up their Bitcoin holdings.
Yeah, they're building quite a fortress.
Yeah. And it's not just the feds either.
Right.
States can get in on this too. They can store their own Bitcoin in the reserve.
Yeah, in separate accounts.
Yay, so that's interesting.
It is. It makes you wonder, will this make more states think about holding Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Knowing that there's this safe and well-managed system at the federal level,
Right.
it could really speed up Bitcoin adoption across the country.
It's almost like they're setting up a Bitcoin bank for the nation.
Kind of? Yeah.
But with all this Bitcoin potentially under government control,
Yeah.
how can we be sure it's being handled responsibly and transparently?
Well, transparency is a big focus in this bill.
Okay.
They want to do this proof of reserve system.
Okay.
So every quarter, they have to put out public reports with cryptographic proof that they actually have the Bitcoin they say they do.
Okay, so no funny business.
Nope. If they want people to trust them, they got to be open about it.
Right.
And it goes even further than that.
Yeah.
They want an independent third party to check these reports.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking about experts in this cryptographic stuff.
Wow.
Who can make sure the government's claims are legit.
So they're not messing around.
Nope. And on top of all that, the Comptroller General will be keeping an eye on everything.
Okay, so they're pulling out all the stops to make sure this reserve is managed properly.
They are.
But let's talk about the big question. How are they going to pay for all this?
Right. 1 million Bitcoin is not cheap.
No, it's not.
So the bill suggests using some of the Federal Reserve's extra money, what they call discretionary surplus funds.
Okay, so dipping into their savings.
Basically, but that probably won't be enough to cover everything.
Right.
So they're also thinking about taking some of the money the Federal Reserve sends to the Treasury
Okay.
and using that for the Bitcoin purchases.
So they're redirecting funds they already have.
Yeah, but is that enough for such a big program?
Right, right.
Well, there's one more piece to this puzzle.
Okay.
They're considering adjusting the value of those outstanding gold certificates.
Wait, are they saying they might sell off some of their gold to buy Bitcoin?
It doesn't say that specifically,
Okay.
but it's definitely a possibility.
Wow, that would be a huge statement.
It would, and that's part of what's making this whole thing so controversial.
I bet that's got people in both traditional finance and the crypto world talking.
Oh, yeah.
But before we get into all that, let's talk about the people who already own Bitcoin.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, are they worried about this?
Well, a lot of people are asking if this bill means the government can just take their Bitcoin.
Right.
And the answer is no.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, the bill clearly states that the government can't seize or confiscate anyone's Bitcoin.
Okay, so Bitcoin enthusiasts can breathe easy.
Their Bitcoin is safe.
Good, good.
But are there other ways this could affect them?
Yeah. Yeah, are there any, like, indirect benefits or drawbacks?
Well, one potential benefit is that this could make Bitcoin more mainstream.
Okay.
You know, if the government's involved, it could give it more legitimacy.
Right.
And that could lead to more businesses accepting it, more investment opportunities, and maybe even a more stable price.
So if the U.S. government is putting its money on Bitcoin,
Yeah.
more people might start to see it as a real alternative to traditional currencies.
Exactly.
Okay.
But of course, there's also the chance that the government will start regulating the crypto world even more.
Right. Right. It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
Well, we've covered a lot already, but we've only scratched the surface of this bill.
We have.
It's pretty complex.
Yeah,
And it could really change things up.
it could.
It's not just about getting a digital asset.
Right.
It's a statement. It's a risk.
Yeah.
And it could be a turning point in financial history.
Yeah,
It's pretty wild.
it is. This could be a power move, you know,
Oh, yeah.
to keep America on top of the global financial system.
Okay.
The whole world is watching to see what happens with this.
I bet. I bet. So what are other countries saying about this?
It's kind of a mixed bag.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some countries are suspicious.
Yeah.
They're worried this could shake up the whole financial order.
Right. Like the U.S. dollar being on top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Others are more like intrigued by it.
Okay.
Maybe they see this as a chance to diversify their own reserves and
Yeah.
try out these digital assets.
Okay. Okay. I bet economists are having a field day with this, too.
Oh, yeah.
So what are like the main arguments for and against it?
So the people who are for the bill,
Yeah.
they often say this could lead to more economic and technological innovation in the U.S.
Okay.
They think that by embracing Bitcoin, the U.S. could attract investment
Right.
in the digital asset world and become a leader in this whole new field.
So it's like if you can't beat them, join them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they also think a strategic Bitcoin reserve could protect us against future economic problems,
Okay.
especially with all the worries about inflation and the national debt.
Right. Right. But there have to be some concerns, too.
Well,
Right.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
The critics say this could totally backfire.
Okay.
They think it could hurt the U.S. dollar
Yeah.
and mess up our economic standing in the world. They're afraid it could cause other countries to lose faith in the dollar.
Oh, so like a run on the dollar.
Yeah, basically.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Are there any historical examples that could give us some clues here?
You know, it's funny you should mention that
Yeah.
some economists are comparing this to what happened in the early 1900s,
Okay.
when the U.S. moved away from the gold standard to a fiat system.
Right.
That was super controversial back then.
I bet.
But it ended up paving the way for the financial system we have now.
So they're seeing this as kind of like a similar turning point,
Yeah.
like a shift toward a new system where digital assets are a bigger deal.
Exactly.
There.
And just like getting rid of the gold standard, there are risks
Of course.
and things we can't predict.
Right.
But it could also open up new possibilities for growth and innovation.
Okay. So we've been talking a lot about the big picture impact.
Yeah.
But let's get into the practical stuff for a minute.
Sure.
The bill mentions these secure storage facilities.
Right.
But what do those actually look like?
Well, security is the most important thing when you're dealing with digital assets.
Yeah, especially on this scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're proposing a network of storage facilities spread out across the country.
Okay, so no single point of failure.
Exactly.
Smart. Could you give us a picture of what one of these facilities would be like?
I'm thinking like a top secret bunker.
Okay.
Maybe underground or in some remote area.
Right.
With layers and layers of security.
Wow.
We're talking like high-tech surveillance, biometric scanners, and people watching it all the time.
That sounds intense.
It does, right.
Yeah.
But what about the digital side of security?
Yeah, how do you stop hackers from getting in?
So they're really pushing this idea of cold storage, which means the Bitcoin would be totally offline.
Oh, so not connected to the internet at all?
Nope.
Wow, so it's like Fort Knox for Bitcoin.
Exactly.
High-tech and completely isolated.
Right. And they're also bringing in the best cybersecurity experts from places like the Department of Defense and Homeland Security to make sure everything is as secure as possible.
They're not taking any chances.
Nope.
But Bitcoin is still a pretty new technology.
Yeah.
Are there any challenges they might not be expecting?
Well, one thing is dealing with the complexity of the Bitcoin blockchain itself.
Okay.
We've seen things like forks and airdrops before.
Oh, right, where the blockchain splits or new tokens come.
So exactly, and that can get messy.
Right.
So the bill tries to address that.
Okay, go.
It says that any new assets that come from forks or airdrops,
Yeah.
those would also be part of the reserve.
Oh, right.
So they're basically preparing for any changes that might happen.
They're thinking ahead.
Yeah. The world of Bitcoin is always changing.
Right.
So they're trying to be flexible.
Makes sense. So we've talked about the impact on the government and the global financial system.
Right?
But what about the everyday person who owns Bitcoin?
Good question. We did talk about how the bill protects their rights. Right.
The government can't just take their Bitcoin.
Right.
But are there other effects they might feel?
Yeah.
One positive thing could be that Bitcoin becomes more mainstream.
Okay.
Because the government is involved.
Yeah.
That could lead to more acceptance by businesses, more investment, and maybe even a steadier price.
So it's like a seal of approval from the government.
Kind of.
Okay.
But of course, there's always the flip side.
Right.
More government involvement could also mean more regulation.
Right. It's always a trade-off.
It is.
It's clear that this bill has a lot of different implications.
It does.
It affects everything from global finance to people who just like Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
It's pretty crazy.
It is. It really highlights the huge changes happening in technology and finance.
Yeah.
And the choices we make now will affect the world for a long time.
Well, we're almost out of time for this part of the deep dive.
Okay.
But this conversation has just made this whole thing even more interesting.
It has.
We'll be back soon to wrap up our look at the Bitcoin Act of 2024. Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into this Bitcoin Act of 2024.
All right.
We've really gone through a lot,
Yeah, we have.
The motivations, the mechanics, the potential risks, the rewards.
Uh-huh.
I think it's pretty clear that this bill, it's not just about buying some new digital asset.
Right.
It's like a statement.
Yeah.
It's a gamble,
Yeah.
and it could totally change how we think about finance.
It really could. It's like the U.S. is at this crossroads, right?
Well,
deciding if they want to stick with traditional finance or take this leap into the world of crypto.
And this bill is that leap.
It is.
It really makes us think about some big questions.
Definitely.
Like, what is money, really?
Yeah.
What's the role of government?
Right.
What kind of future are we building?
All important questions.
Yeah, and one of those interesting things about this whole debate is that it shows this clash of ideologies.
That's true.
On one side, you have the people who like stability and control.
Yeah, the centralized systems folks.
Right. They see the U.S. dollar as like the foundation of the global economy.
The bedrock.
Exactly. And then on the other side.
You've got the people who love decentralization.
Okay.
They're all about individual freedom and the power of technology to disrupt things.
Okay.
They see Bitcoin as a way to break free from the system. A protection against inflation and a way to make things fairer.
Right. So it's almost like this philosophical battle playing out on a global scale.
It really is. And the Bitcoin Act is right in the middle of it.
And we don't know who's going to win.
No, we don't.
What happens if this bill passes?
Well, if the U.S. manages to set up this Bitcoin reserve, it could start a chain reaction.
Oh, yeah?
Other countries might decide to do the same thing.
So imagine central banks all over the world holding Bitcoin.
alongside their gold and other currencies.
A huge change. What would that even look like?
It's hard to say, would it make the global financial system more stable?
Yeah.
Or would it just make things more complicated?
Right. Would it give people more power?
Or would governments end up with even more control?
These are big questions.
They are, and we'll probably be debating them for years to come.
So we've come to the end of our deep dive.
We have.
And I keep coming back to that question we started with.
Yeah.
Is this a smart move for the U.S. or a big risk?
I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah.
But this bill is a big experiment.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen.
It could be good or bad.
Exactly.
Right.
It could lead to more stability, innovation, and financial inclusion.
Okay.
Or it could create chaos and disruption.
Yeah. So it's like we're in uncharted territory.
We are.
And we don't have a map.
The world is changing so fast.
It is. And the decisions we make today will shape what tomorrow looks like.
It will.
One thing's for sure, though.
What's that?
The conversation about Bitcoin and crypto and the future of finance,
Yeah.
it's not going away.
This is just the beginning.
It's a journey we all need to be part of.
I agree.
We need to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Challenge what we think we know
Absolutely.
and consider all the possibilities.
It's an exciting time to be alive.
It really is. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
I hope our listeners have a better understanding of this bill now.
Me too. And I hope they're curious to learn more.
Yes. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions.
The world is changing fast.
And knowledge is power.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep exploring.